You think you choose. You believe your decisions are yours, private, sacred, sovereign. You call that freedom. You call it dignity. But what if your choices are echoes, reverberations of power you never named? What if free will is a mythology invented to make weakness respectable, to make obedience tolerable? Nietzsche said the gods are dead. He also said the comfortable lie about free will is alive, and it keeps you small. This is the part most teachers skip. Free will is not a natural right, it is a battlefield, and the winner writes the rules. Most people treat free will as if it were a fact of nature, like gravity, like night following day. But Nietzsche pulls the curtain back. He asks a different set of questions. Who benefits when everyone believes they freely choose? Who profits when people think their obedience is virtue? Who keeps power intact by convincing the masses they are freely consenting? You've been told, obey the law, respect tradition, feel guilty when you don't. You've been taught to believe suffering earns merit, that duty is noble, that your limits are moral. That story keeps societies stable. It keeps hierarchies intact. It makes you complicit in your own containment. Nietzsche doesn't start with moral niceties. He starts with power. He says morals can be weapons, guilt can be a leash, and the myth of free will can be a velvet glove over an iron fist. To understand Nietzsche, you need genealogy, the history of how ideas are born, mutated, weaponized. He borrows the genealogical method to strip ideas down to their origin stories. Free will emerges out of a long clash between masters and slaves. There are, in Nietzsche's sharp distinction, two moral spheres, the master morality and the slave morality. Master morality says, I create my values, I affirm life, I say yes to power. Slave morality says, I resent those who create. I sanctify weakness, I worship humility, patience, suffering. Free will in this frame becomes a doctrine of the weak. It says, you're morally responsible for your fate, so you must accept your place, your guilt, your penance. It turns systemic suffering into personal sin. It insists you chose your chains. This genealogy strips away the pleasant illusions. It shows that many moral systems were never neutral. They were strategies, survival tools for subordinate groups. And the myth of free will, it served as one of those strategies. Nietzsche does not simply deny volition, he reframes it. He says the old metaphysical notion of a rational sovereign will, an inner judge weighing choices like scales, doesn't exist. Instead, he proposes a more brutal truth, the will to power. The will to power is not just lust for domination, it is the fundamental drive, creative, destructive, formative. It is the impulse that makes organisms act, that shapes values, that forges culture. It is the engine beneath the language of choice. Where free will imagines a quiet, rational subject choosing selflessly, Nietzsche sees a battlefield of drives, instincts, resentments, ambitions, fears, clashing and coalescing. What we call decision is the temporary armistice we name after the strongest force has won. This is a violent reframing. It relocates agency away from a moral judge and into force. It suggests that the narrative of moral responsibility, the guilt, the praise, the blame, is less about truth and more about who has power to enforce the story. Look at religion. For millennia, priests taught that sin is a personal failing. The solution? Repentance, obedience, submission. The effect? Stability. Free will becomes the vocabulary for guilt. You sinned because you chose badly. That language shifts focus away from structural injustices, inequality, exploitation, scarcity, and downloads blame onto individuals. Nietzsche watched this and saw the cruelty. The weak codify their impotence into morality and call it virtue. They teach the strong to conform or be damned. Free will language is the perfect social technology. It obscures chain makers and highlights chain wearers. If you want the rest of this truth, and you can handle it, Subscribe now. We go deeper than slogans. We strip the polite lies. Hit subscribe and keep watching, because the next sections will show you not only how you were made, but how you can begin to remap yourself. If Nietzsche were alive today, he'd laugh and then smash your phone. The modern factories of moral programming are invisible and far more efficient. Schooling, media, advertising, corporate HR, social platforms. They teach habit and announce it as choice. Algorithms whisper desires you think are yours. Consider advertising. It doesn't ask you to buy a product. It rewires your identity so buying seems like self-expression. Then you choose what you already learned to want. You aren't deciding from a blank slate. You're following carefully arranged cues. Education similarly polishes obedience into aptitude. Standardized tests, credentials, degree signaling, all these funnel people into roles the system needs filled. You choose a career, but only from the menu it offers. And politics. Democracy sells the idea of choice, but the options are often constrained to what the power structure tolerates. So-called free choice becomes ritualized consent. These are not accidents, they're techniques. They manufacture a feeling of agency while preserving the underlying power relations. Nietzsche called it resentment weaponized into institutions. Seeing the strings is the first step. Nietzsche didn't just diagnose, he wanted people to become what he called overmen, those who transcend herd morality, who create their own values. How do you start? By interrogating the most comfortable beliefs. What do you believe because you felt it or because someone told you? Which desires are genuinely yours versus installed by culture? When did you accept suffering as noble? Who benefits from that acceptance? This is not intellectual vanity, it's survival. The overman begins with brutal honesty, discomfort, solitude, practice. It is not self-indulgence, it is reconstruction. For 7 days, track one decision per day. Before acting, ask, where did this desire come from? Who benefits if I follow it? The answer will bruise you. It will also free you. A misreading of Nietzsche can lead to nihilism. Nothing matters, so do as you please. That's a coward's escape. Nietzsche wanted the opposite. After the death of old gods, you must create new values, life-affirming, strength-affirming values. Rejecting the myth of free will isn't license for passivity. It's a call to responsibility, not the moralistic guilt kind, but the creative responsibility of building yourself deliberately. It's the discipline to shape your drives into a coherent, personal code. This is where power meets ethics in Nietzsche. A person who knows their drives and uses them intentionally is not a tyrant over others, but an artist of the self. You came here for answers. Nietzsche gives you one final, brutal question. Will you keep living under the comforting lie that you choose freely, never to question the scripts? Or will you accept that your will is a process to be sharpened, not a given to be worshipped? The weak call free, will a refuge. The strong call it a myth to be overcome. Your future is not handed to you. It is forged by the choices you can actually see and the power you are willing to claim. Free will is not a gift, it is a war. Win it or be won.